Hello and welcome to another episode of KARE 11 On the Record. I'm political reporter Danny Spiewak. Progressive candidates had their moment in Democratic primaries in Minnesota this past week with major victories by Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan in the U.S. Senate primary and by Matt Little in the Congressional District 2 primary in that area south of the Twin Cities. We're talking with somebody this week who knows Democratic politics in America perhaps better than anybody. Joe Trippi, a longtime Democratic strategist who was campaign manager for Howard Dean's presidential campaign in 2004 and also worked on Walter Mondale's campaign in 1984. I'm pleased now to be joined by Joe Trippi, a longtime Democratic strategist. And Joe, a lot to talk about with Minnesota's primaries. What do you make, just first of all, of progressive candidate Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan resoundingly winning the U.S. Senate nomination in our state?
Look, I think it's great. I think one of the things that's going on is people want real change. They're really, I think, a little bit wary of both parties' establishment, particularly on the Republican side, because it's really run by one person, Donald Trump. And so, but I think on the Democratic side, I think you're seeing a lot of energy around the people that are more progressive or represent a bigger change than just the usual establishment Democrats. So I think that's what's happening. That's what happened in Minnesota, I think. I also think the reason you didn't see that happen like in a place like Wisconsin with Hung is there's a difference. A senator, is one of 100. So you take a chance. You're ready to take a chance on big change, but you also know they're one out of 9, and there's 99 others. And so there's a lot more leeway to actually test out those ideas, the bigger change ideas. And there's probably a reticence, I think, for governor or maybe even president, because look at Donald Trump, he can issue an EO, an executive order that can impact you. I mean, and the same thing for somebody on the left or the extreme right. You don't want to, even though there may be some change policies that you're excited about, you're not necessarily going to make that same leap for governor as you will for the U.S. Senate.
Speaking of that, the Wisconsin race with Francesca Hong narrowly losing to the more so-called moderate candidate, do you think there's a difference in voters' minds between Hong, who is a true Democratic socialist, and then in Minnesota, where you're talking about Flanagan, who is a progressive but hasn't used the DSA label?
Well, one, obviously there's a difference, but I still think the bigger difference is the office. I really think that Hong may have had a better shot at winning the party's nomination had she been running for a Senate seat, again, one of 100, versus being the chief administrator, of the state of Wisconsin, able to issue executive orders, veto things, push, things that people might see as risky. I think there's a real reticence. I mean, I think that's the big difference there. It's not so much, and yet obviously Flanagan is not a DSA person. She's progressive, and maybe that's also part of the line that people in Wisconsin weren't willing to cross.
A lot of the narrative on the campaign trail, whether it's from the moderate Democrats running against these candidates in primaries or just the Republicans, is that they don't believe that the progressive candidates can win statewide elections or elections outside of blue districts. Do you believe there are any potential negative ramifications for them being on the general election ballot in November?
Actually, I think the opposite. First of all, it's why we have elections. They go out, they won their primaries. They now have a real shot, to go out and convince people to vote for them in the general. But I would tell you, look, my experience is, and it's the same thing on the right with the Republicans. The MAGA voters who wanted Trump and wanted real change, coming into 2016, 2024, when he's not on the ballot and they have a more establishment Republican running, they don't vote. The same is true in a place like Michigan, El Sayed, Minnesota, Wisconsin, when when the person that has the hardest time bringing out occasional voters, particularly in a change election like this, is somebody who's a status quo or establishment Democrat or Republican, right? Because all those young voters, all those people who are excited by Flanagan, who want change, and like her being progressive, they're not disappointed. They're on fire. They're voting for her. And the people that were worried about electability, a more moderate candidate because maybe they wanted somebody who was more electable, they were worried about her electability. Guess what? Those people, every single one of them is going to vote because the change they want is to stop Trump and a Trump enabler. I mean, that's the same thing the other way around on the other side. I think it's actually beneficial. I would argue that El Sayed in Michigan is going to have an easier time turning out every single Democrat who voted in that historically huge turnout in their primary than Haley Stevens, the moderate or more establishment Democrat. She would have had a tougher time turning out El Sayed's voters. He's not going to have as tough. He's already won. They were worried about his electability because why? Because they want to beat Mike Rogers, the Republican, and not have a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. So those voters, Haley Stevens voters, are going to vote. And it would counter that. Crowley may have a tougher time turning out Hong voters, disappointed Han voters in Wisconsin. It's a very strange. I've watched this all year, and what I'm seeing is that first of all, you're seeing huge Democratic turnout everywhere, and a drop in Republican turnout across the board in most of these states. It's going to be interesting to see who can keep that turnout and that energy carried into November. But I think actually the progressive has a better shot at getting everybody out versus somebody like Crowley may have to work harder to get out the Hong voters.
You have a really interesting perspective on what's happening now, given when you were running the campaign for Howard Dean in 2004. Similar, a grassroots campaign. You guys really harnessed digital media at the time, really groundbreaking. Do you see parallels, 22 years later, between what you did back then and what you're seeing now?
Actually, please don't blame me for this. I mean, everybody who's getting those emails saying, send us money. I'm not sure that but no, again, you have these situations where it's all now on digital, and it's easy to manipulate people digitally. And I think that's the part that scares me. I mean, the algorithms pushing people to divide, anger, hate, the divisions that get spewed online right now, I think are problematic and a big piece of why we're so polarized.
What do you think is the fix to that? Obviously, it really taints politics from the left and right, it seems, to a lot of the mainstream voters that just want to see the candidates and hear the issues.
Well, I mean, like you're seeing it now with data centers, and there's the money that AI has, that the tech billionaires has. And they're more interested in their technology and beating each other out for more billions than they really are about whether you have higher electricity prices or what they're doing to the water or your environment for farmers and hunters. And I think that's creating a real, I think people are getting that, whose data are they cranking in those data centers? It's your data. You're on social media, you're posting things, it's your data, it's your words, it's your thinking, and then they're charging, they're using it so advertisers and they can manipulate you with their algorithms. And I think people are getting just fed up with the tech bros rolling over everybody. And so I think, you're starting to see real downturn in people joining these social networks. Frankly, I think we need to create healthy social networks where they can have civility and not the bots trying to instigate, more division. And unfortunately, we have a lot of politicians, and frankly, in my view, we have a president who understands how to use those algorithms, how to use these networks to really put a wedge between people and split us up, and it's worked for them. But I think people are tired of it. They're sick of it. They're not. I really think that's diminishing returns now. That it's losing its power.
Yeah, I know this goes a ways back, but when you were working on the Mondale campaign in the primaries in 1984, I know you were instrumental in Iowa, that cycle. What did you learn about just Midwestern voters, Democratic primary voters? I know things have changed since then, but what did you learn on the ground from that experience?
I fell in love with the Midwest. I fell in love with Iowa and Minnesota. I really did. And Walter Mondale was one of the best people, probably the best person I've ever worked for in my career. But, in Iowa, and I was just out there, 2 months ago. I've been out there several times this year. And if it had been up to me, I'd still have Iowa be the first state in the country. The Midwest, I was actually up by Mason City just a few weeks ago, talking to farmers up there, and some of them were, on the Minnesota border up that way. And in both states, the people are just genuine, and I think among the fairest. If you asked me what area of the country should pick, if you could only have one area of the country pick a party's nominee, for me it'd be the Midwest. It'd be places like Minnesota and Iowa.
All right, that's Joe Trippi. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll talk to you between now and November.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking with you.
Welcome back. The Minnesota governor's race is set for November. The matchup is going to be U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar against GOP House Speaker Lisa Demuth. After the primary, we got a chance to speak with both candidates. I talked with Senator Klobuchar briefly the day after the primary, and my colleague Raya Katene caught up with House Speaker Demuth on the night of the primary. So, Senator, you're now pivoting from primary to general election. Just where is your campaign at as you look ahead to the matchup now with Speaker Demuth?
Sure. So from the beginning, I have been running not just a Democrat campaign, because I don't think I want to steer the state left and I don't want to steer the state right. I want to steer the state forward. So for me, this has been about bringing people with us. I'm not surprised that it was like 2-1, the number of people that voted in our primary for me versus the Republican primary. People don't want a rubber stamp of Donald Trump, but they also want to have someone who's going to fix things. I'm going to root out the fraud. Prosecutor background, ran the biggest prosecutor's office in Minnesota for 8 years, and then also transform our government. We need to get to a better place.
How are you feeling in this?
I'm feeling really good. I think this is a great opportunity. What we saw in the voter turnout and them coming in and me getting the nomination as far as the votes and winning the primary, this is our opportunity to really move Minnesota forward, and I'm excited about that.
What's your message to Minnesota?
Minnesota, again, this is Minnesota's comeback. This is our opportunity to turn our state around finally, get us back on the right track, make us stronger and better, ending the fraud, accountability that starts at the very top, choosing to have commissioners that are going to be accountable and work hard for the people of Minnesota and make sure that we are stronger.
What would you say some of the biggest contrasts you're going to draw with Speaker Demuth on the campaign trail?
Sure. So, first of all, if you've seen those ads that she's been running, they're paid for by a Wisconsin billionaire, maybe even a Green Bay Packers fan. This is one guy, and he's a billionaire, and he's been funding them. And I don't want to be his choice for governor. I want to be Minnesota's choice for governor. When you look at the difference, where asked multiple times, she has been unable to criticize one thing Donald Trump has done. Not the tariffs, which are decimating our farmers and ranchers and small businesses, not the Medicaid cuts, the biggest in history, which make it really hard for a healthcare system, and not even the war in Iran, which some other Republicans have criticized, where she's embraced it. And that has also been expensive and very difficult for Minnesota in so many ways. So I'm someone that believes in keeping what's right, but fixing what's wrong. And My focus is going to be making the lives of Minnesotans better.
Are you confident that you'll have the backing of the Minnesota GOP now that you have claimed victory in the primary? And do you hope that President Trump will also give you his endorsement?
You know, I think this is our opportunity to really pull the state together as far as Republicans, independents that are looking, and maybe Democrats that have been disenfranchised. I have heard already from the state party chair looking at those early numbers, and I look forward to unifying the state party.
And President Trump?
You know, you never know how that is going to go, but I've been able to appreciate the things that President Trump has done as far as securing our borders and putting in additional requirements for people that are receiving SNAP and other benefits, making sure that people that are able-bodied and can work do so that those dollars that we have available, even at a state level, can go to those that need it the most.
Obviously, the issue of fraud is probably going to be the number one thing she talks about. Are you prepared for that onslaught that's going to come from the Republicans?
Oh, I am, because my answer is this. I'm the only one that ran a prosecutor's office for 8 years. I'm the one that when I heard about this fraud, I called the U.S. Attorney, Andy Lugar, who I had actually put in place in that office because I knew he was a really tough prosecutor. He's the one that exposed the fraud that brought 75 cases. And I said, what can I do to help after he's in there? And he says, we need more prosecutors. I called the top of the Justice Department. I got that done, and he can tell the story. They got more prosecutors than any other office in the country. That's actually taking action. That's not just talk, that's action.
Is it historic in some way that you will be facing U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar in the midterm in the fall?
I do believe that is historic, but what I will say is Senator Klobuchar, when we were looking, just look at her record and look at where Minnesota is right now. The New York Times called the fraud that took place in here, historic fraud, brazen. That is not what Minnesota should be. You looked at a quality Leering Center because of the fraud that took place, and we're being laughed at by other places in the country. That is not where we should be. So I look forward to going head to head. Hopefully there will be a number of debates upcoming with Senator Klobuchar so Minnesotans can really see the vast difference between what I will do as the next governor and where she is at on a number of things.
What do you think is going to define the campaign between now and November?
For me, it's going to be keeping on going everywhere, not just where it's comfortable, but where it's uncomfortable. 87 counties every single year. Meeting with people of our state and listening to them and saying, what can make your life better? And then putting it into action. I am the one that's continued to put out detailed plans that Minnesotans can look at amyklobuchar.com that really lay out what I'm going to do on healthcare to bring your premiums down, what I'm going to do to bring your housing costs down, and what we're going to do to make our government match your drive and ambition. So it's all out there, because I want to measure myself by someone. I think the voters have a right to know what you're going to do when you get in office.
The work doesn't stop, and as I mentioned earlier, we're 11 weeks and 6 days from the November 3rd election, and that work doesn't stop. I'm grateful, though, that I could build on it all the way from when I first entered the race in November. I'm just building on those same things, ending fraud, lowering taxes, improving education. That's what Minnesotans want.
You said that somebody called 50,000 people?
53,000 people were called by one of our grassroots volunteer. She started with us right away in November, and she has continued all the way on. We've had a large group of volunteers, but that was just one in particular. That is how motivated people were to join as volunteers the Dameth Wilson ticket and then really educate Minnesotans on the opportunity to change things.
What does it mean to have 4 women at the top of the ticket, governor and Senate?
Unique for everyone, I'm sure, and I'm someone who has been the first woman in really all my elected jobs. I was the first woman to run the Hennepin County Attorney's Office as a prosecutor. I was the first woman to get elected to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota. And I would like to be the first woman governor, but I am not running on that. I'm asking women and men to support me based on what I want to get done and what my plans are.
People want to be heard. I was up in Grand Rapids for a parade a week ago, and it was amazing as we were going through, people were saying, we can't believe that you as a candidate came all the way up to Grand Rapids. And I thought, why wouldn't I do that? Because every bit of the state is very unique, but it also matters very much.
Welcome back. After this week's primary, the candidates for U.S. Senate are already pivoting to the general election in November as well. That's Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan against former sportscaster Michelle Tafoya, already trading barbs right after the primary.
We are not about to give Donald Trump another loyal soldier like Michelle Tafoya to take his orders and do his bidding. Michelle Tafoya was all in with Trump when ICE was terrorizing our neighbors. She even said, ICE treated children really, really well.
They have brought us to this place. They have brought us to the land of fraud. They have brought us to the place where our school scores are dropping. They have brought us to the place where crime is front and center on everyone's mind. This has all happened under their watch while they were in power. And so it is time to send them home, and it is time to have accountability, and it is time to try something new. And I'm ready to take that mantle.
And the race is set in Congressional District 2 south of the Twin Cities. Matt Little, a progressive former state senator, defeated his opponents by a resounding margin. He'll face GOP State Senator Eric Pratt, who did not have a primary challenge.
My message to them is, aren't you tired of paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month in your premium just for your health insurance company to deny you? And then if they approve it, then you still have to pay a deductible. Aren't you tired of doing all that song and dance with that complexity? Let's pass Medicare for all so that you have health care from the day you're born until the day you pass.
You know, I think it's going to be a turnout race. It's going to be, again, who best represents the values of the people of the 2nd District. I believe that most of our families have conservative values, but they've been voting Democrat. They don't like extremes.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of KARE 11 On the Record. You can catch us every Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. and streaming on KARE 11 Plus.